Thanks so much to all my patrons. Join now to help support the channel and help pick the books that I review. Link in the description. And I am done. Okay, so I just got done reading LastRock. This is book 3 in the Immortal Great Souls series by Phil Tucker, and I want to give you my unedited thoughts on finishing this book, which was literally just right now. So, yeah, loved it, just like normal. Another 5 out of 5 book for me in this series. That's 3 in a row. Love this series. It's so good for what it is. It's not for everybody. We'll talk about it. For me, it's fantastic. Hopefully, it is for you. But I love it. It's one of those things that I probably would have never picked up on my own, and I'm so glad that I did. I'm so glad that I have this booktube channel that allows me to get recommendations from people that I normally would not have. And this is one of those. So let's reverse a little bit, talk a little bit about this series, run into this book, my likes, dislikes. We'll go from there. There were some things I disliked, but I had so much fun in this thing that I can excuse all negative thoughts, because I'm really going to walk away with just only positive ones when I look back on the series in this book. It's just fantastic. So I was doing a little reading of some books in the lit RPG realm. This is in the more progression fantasy. I think Cradle. I think me talking about Cradle so much by Will White had a lot of people tell me that I need to pick up Bastion by Phil Tucker. That's the first book in this series, and I put it off for a long time. Like I looked online, I didn't have a ton of reviews. Felt like everybody loved it that read it, but not a lot of reviews. The cover looked silly, to say the best. I mean, just pull up a cover. Do I have one here? It's too far away to grab. The cover of Bastion, silly, but like, look at this. Like, okay, maybe you love this kind of cover. I don't love it. It looks a little silly. Bastion's way worse. This is the best one so far. And I was like, I put it off, but like, everyone told me the same thing. Like, if you love Cradle, this is going to be fantastic. And then one of my viewers just bought it for me. Bought the first 2 books for me, actually, and then bought this one for me after I liked the first 2. So I was like, I gotta read it. So I put it off, and then eventually it won on my raffle, and I was like, okay, finally. And I loved every moment of it. It's fantastic, and it had me gripped in that video gamey, I can't go to sleep, I got to do one more turn, I got to read one more page kind of feeling that I love. It's harder and harder for me to get books that make me feel that way, and that's just fantastic. The first couple had that very traditional progression fantasy, very quickly powering up. You know, you start at home. You start as, in all these books, you start as like the lowliest underdog. You show that you are better than everybody in your small little village or whatever it is. In this, it's a small little school. You break out, you go to bigger and better things, and you go on to kind of save the world. That's how all these go. At the stage we're in when this book starts, the hero is at that very quickly ascending beyond the small little thing, not at the huge, grand scale, but in that middle sphere. The general kind of take of the story, and I'm not going to give any spoilers, but like a line or two, but everybody is living in hell, or like a hellish land. I think it's hell, but it doesn't like look like hell. But everyone's in this, living in this, world, and it's very bizarre where if you die, you come back later on, reincarnated as yourself, but you don't have any of your memories. But you're trying to power up and like level your skills and like quickly get bigger and bigger so you can quickly go try to get to the bottom of hell. And if you get to the bottom, there's this prophecy that you will save everybody and everybody will be able to leave. But time's running out. There's a shot clock essentially, and we're at the buzzer. It's kind of the last time that everybody can do this. The last class of people have been reincarnated, and pretty much, it's got to be from somebody alive right now because time's ticking. And that's the story. And so when we go into this one, I'm worried, right? Because we're at that point in progression fantasy where things can quickly get a little too overpowered. It happens like that in video games too. I don't know if you're a big video game guy, but the fun part of video games is accumulating that power when there's things stronger than you and weaker than you, that you can have that grind of getting better and better, where you can now take out the people that were a little better than you, and now there's a new class above you, and it always feels like there's a little bit more to go. But when you get to the top, those games become not fun when you stomp everybody. And these books become the same way. They all kind of end the same way. When you're just bigger and badder than everybody. The last �Cradle book was like, no spoilers, but it's just like, he's just flicking people away. And it's like, I'm not getting any entertainment out of this. There's the tension's gone. But here, like, tension is sky high. We're in that perfect sweet spot. In fact, I might like this one more than the others from a consistency basis. Just beginning to end, it's great. So this one had something I want to point out. Going into a few little specifics, I'll try to point some stuff out for people that have read it without ruining too much. But there is a sequence in this story where 𝐒𝐨𝐜𝐢, our main character, like befriends one of like the demons, and it's awesome. It's so good. I mean, it's like the best that progression fantasy has to offer. When you have that glimpse at something that's truly a next level strong, and you get to be around, like, it's that tantalizing moment when you're like, you know, you're reading a fantasy book and you're trudging along, and something like there's a dragon that gets thrown into the story, right? And like you're not sure it's going to be totally like pulled into the story or not. And when you finally do get that involvement, when you kind of think like, oh yeah, this book's going this way, but then you kind of get that huge adventure, that thing you kind of were in the back of your head, kind of like, is the author going to go there? This book kind of had that, and it's great. It's so good, and it's not short. It goes for a long time, and it allows you to put the pedal to the metal in such a fun way. It had a lot of what the previous books had too, of that punching up thing, significantly punching up. You know, I like in these books a lot when characters are punching a class or two above their weight class. It gives you that like heroic feeling that Sanderson kind of writing gives you a lot. You know, those moments in like Stormlight when, you're jumping into the arena, taking on multiple people. I don't want to ruin more than that. And you're just like standing up kind of, going like raw for your main character, right? Because you're like, how is he possibly going to get out of this? They are, right? But it's just these overwhelming odds that feel so good to overcome. And we're in that sweet spot. Now, I worry that we're going to get out of that sweet spot. That we're going to quickly kind of be very fastly moving to that overpowered range. But we're not there. And I don't think the next book will be there either. And hopefully the author figures out how to balance this, and I get that fun throughout, and we get that ending stage that kind of, you hit the peak at the end, the very end, right? Not the book before the end, or like the beginning of the last book. So yeah, awesome. There are some stuff I didn't like about this book, though. It unfortunately has now pulled into the relationship zone between our two main characters. And it sucks. And luckily there's not a ton of pages devoted to it into this. I worry that there will be a lot devoted in the future. But our main characters are now in the obvious territory of romantic interests. And I'm not ruining anything, because when you have two main characters in a story, and one is male and one is female, and they're around the same age and they're both single, it's quite obvious what's going to happen, right? But it held off for so long, and this has been such a platonic friendship that had literally no whiffs of anything. It's like people don't have any time for relationships in this book. In fact, if you think about it, and you like all of the people in the story, like there's no relationship for anybody. So to have like our main character be the one person who gets involved in one, it's like, right? And because like Phil Tucker is not a romance guy, right? Like he hasn't balanced this out. It doesn't hit right. It feels that weird angsty teenage stuff. And then when you get the one main character, has that like, the doubting themselves and running away and, mental health problems, and like it feels very tacked on and doesn't feel very smooth to the story. And a lot of the way this woman character now is written, I'm not loving it, right? I want to go back to the way that she was written. And I suspect we will. This is kind of maybe the next book, beginning of it, we're going to get some of that old stuff, and then we can ideally get back in the grind of things. I wanted to get there very badly, because this is, there's some painful moments in the story. Other than that, fantastic, awesome. The apexes hit such a nice peak, and I'm loving it. So, do I recommend the story to? Yeah, of course. With caveat, like you kind of got to be a video game kind of person. You got to be either into progression fantasy stories already or into RPG type stories. And when he told you that feeling of like playing an RPG game and like always and not being able to go to bed, right? And like blinking and it's morning and you're on like I don't know, or that you're playing what is it, Sid Meier's, and you know you blink and it's morning, right? And you're on like turn 42, and you're like, what the hell? I said I'd go to bed at turn 17. That's like, if you sympathize with what I just said, like this is that kind of story. Like this is the kind of thing that you probably are looking for, you know. But if you kind of read stories and you need a certain level of like maturity in your stories, or like amazing writing, or like hitting on these certain themes, like you're not going to get that here, right? This is going to be, put this in between some more of your serious reads and have a good time every now and then kind of book. And if you treat it like that, enjoy. You're off to the races, because book one is fantastic and you don't need to read a lot to get into it. So that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching this review. And as always, happy reading to you. Thanks again to all my patrons, with a special shout out to my Ascendant tier and Librarian tier patrons: Amy, Alex P, Anna G, Brady K, Doused, Darren, Jerry, Jonathan, Nev's Book Channel, Ron Reich, Ryan L, Sydney Baker, Anna, Blair, Eric Cannon, Joe UK, Kat Mick, Ricky Iman, and Sky. Thanks for sticking to the end of this video, and if you want to watch some more content from my channel, click over here and I've got some good videos for you. Thanks so much.